Hello, welcome back to the podcast. This is a moment in time, officially season 2, I guess you could
Season
say.
2.
Um yeah, so we're doing a few things a little bit differently this time around. We're going to try and keep things a bit more focused with topics, and we'll see how that goes, if that persists or not. But yeah, I guess to begin, Alex, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Chilling like a villain, except not doing heinous acts. So I guess that means we're doing good.
Yeah. Nice, nice.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. It's good to hear that you're not going around attacking people. I really wasn't sure.
I mean, as far as I know, I'm not.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I
You
wasn't
know.
too sure, but I had to make sure it came from your own mouth without being
Yeah.
prompted, I'll have you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm also doing pretty well. Just it's been
It's been a hot minute
six
since we've talked.
months,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
since we've recorded. I've seen you since then, of course,
Since
but
then, but even still, it's been a hot minute since we talked. I
it
feel like.
has. It has. Just been busy with life things, I guess.
Yeah. How are the cats doing?
Oh, they're doing great. They're both sleeping on my bed, which
Uh,
I don't know
oh,
if you can tell that that's them
I
right
think I
there.
do see them.
Yeah,
And now that
they're
everybody just
right
got a
there.
close up of my hairline, but yeah, no, I see them.
Yeah, they're right
Yeah,
over
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
They're just passed out sleeping on the bed,
Mm-hmm.
which they do every day that I have this door open. They
But
really don't.
how do you wind up sleeping? Do you have to wake them up and kick them off your bed, or do you just
Oh,
sleep like?
yeah, usually at night I feed them in the living room. Like most of the time they're in the living room, but if
Mm-hmm.
I'm awake and I'm working from home or I'm just in my room and stuff, I'll leave the door open, they'll come in. Sometimes they'll sit on the floor by me and like try to get my attention and stuff. Other times they'll like try to sleep there. So when I'm working,
Mm-hmm.
they're always just trying to sleep on my bed. Um and then I close the door at night just cuz I have allergies and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um
So what do you? So what was? If you wanted to go to bed, what would you just wake them up?
Yeah, so if they were laying like asleep on my bed and I wanted to go to bed, I would just lift them up and be like,
Mm-hmm.
"Hello, you must leave now," and then carry them over to the couch in the living room or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then usually they try to move around when that happens a little bit. Sometimes they'll chase me back to my room because they're like, "We don't want to leave you for another 8 hours or whatever." But usually, if I'm feeding them late at night, if I've played with them around that time as well, they're pretty willing to just stay over there and hang
Mm-hmm.
out because they're like, "Oh my God, there's more food here to be eaten."
Yeah, that makes sense.
Um, but like during the day, they'll just sleep here, and sometimes I'll just lift them up and hold them like this
Aw.
in my lap and be like, "I'm gonna cradle you like a little baby." Um, but yeah, for the viewers, yes, I got a cat, few or two cats,
Yeah.
over the summer, so that's a new thing. They're over 5 months now. I think they're getting pretty close to 6.
Yeah. They're pretty.
Um,
They're pretty much like. Well, you know them since birth, but you didn't get them since like birth, right?
yeah, I got them when they were close to 3 months. I think.
Also, you've had them like 2 months so far,
Yeah, maybe
or
just
almost
over.
three. Almost
Yeah,
three because they're like 6 months now, right? Yeah.
yeah. I
It's like
think
three
they're gonna
months.
be 6 months at the end of this month,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I think that makes sense. And then, yeah, yeah, and then they'll have another half year before they're adults. So
Wow.
yeah, I don't know if a year is just arbitrary for them. Anyway, um, well, I just know that cat food it says kitten 1 to 12 months. So I'm like, I don't know if that's just an arbitrary number for like, oh yes, 1 year is just how old they are as a kitten,
Mm-hmm.
um, or if there's like a longer term thing. I have no idea. But they're
Yeah.
kittens right now. That's all I know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. In terms of our topics today, we I pulled out like 3 different articles for us to look at.
Yes, you did.
They're all relating to artificial intelligence. This wasn't like me planning it; it was me like looking at the newsletters that I'm subscribed to in my email, and one of them is Tech Brew, and they had 2 different articles about AI related stuff, and then another one I just found from Ars Technica. So, because I like subscribed to them a month or two ago as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kind of happened that way. But to begin with, I thought we'd talk about the article labeled "Cyber Criminals Are Using AI to Make Phishing Easier." Do you remember which article that was?
Yes, I
Um,
do. I was trying to see if I could pull because I built them on my phone. I was trying to see if I can. Oh, here we go. Here it is. I found them. I was able to get them on the computer. Perfect.
mhm.
There we go. So I read them on my phone earlier.
Yeah.
I was just like laying in bed all day today. I didn't sleep at all. I'm like kind of delirious. I'm not even gonna lie. I just stayed up all night watching random YouTube videos, and then I realized it was like 9 in the morning. I was like, I guess I'm not
Uh,
going to bed at this point.
I mean, that's
So
the perfect time for you to be on your phone reading
yeah,
articles about
yeah,
technology.
yeah. So that's what I did. I was reading
Uh-huh.
them on my phone, but I got them on the computer now, so I got them to reference. So I was able to find them.
Nice. Yeah, I also just read through the articles at lunch today when I was at work. So, and I just made
Hmm.
a note a few things that we could probably talk about. But this article, just so people are aware, it's basically just talking about how it's making or AI is making it easier for people to write very well made phishing emails or like just I think phishing in general. I don't think phishing just refers to email. I think there are other methods, but that's just what I
I
think
feel like
people have
email is
told
the
me.
most common though.
Yeah, yeah. There are other methods. I guess mail would also be another one that you could probably get a phishing letter, but like email
Yeah,
is what
but
everyone knows about.
email is like the most common one. Like,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's the one people usually fall for the most.
Yeah.
I almost got scanned by one actually not that long ago.
Yeah.
It was only because I had signed up for the Stony Brook alumni email,
Mhm.
like right around the same time I got it. So I thought it was a message from the school, but then I
Oh,
realized it
okay.
came to one of my other emails, and then I was like, oh wait, no wait, this is not legit. It was about like getting like a job on campus, and it was like said
Right.
just email us back, and I was like, oh okay, yeah, let me do that because I'm still looking for a job, and then I was like, wait a minute, who are these professors even in this email? And I looked them up, and they were like some random professors from like a random like school in like Jersey. And I was
Right,
like, this
right.
is, or like, and then like one was like California, and they have no, and like this is not anything to do with Stony Brook. It's like, wait a minute, maybe I should not give them my information. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
I mean, like, so it just goes to show that it's like everybody always thinks it's like only old people really fall victim to this, but like if you're not smart enough, even like anybody could fall victim to it. Especially with this article talking about the AI,
Yeah.
makes it
I mean,
a little more
nowadays I'm like
scary.
just make sure you know what URL or what email address you're looking at when you're looking at
Yeah.
emails. Because even if it looks very accurate, like it could be something from um your own alma mater or like your company or whatever else, or like someone that you know. You just have to
Hmm.
make sure that you know what email you're getting messages
Yeah, yeah,
from,
yeah,
because it could just be like one letter off or one number is being added or something like that,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that's kind of how you know. Or like um I was looking at a phishing email earlier today, just from like a work training thing,
Hmm.
and it had like a banner at the top of it that said a very valid email address for
This is for your work, you said?
yeah, we have like
Yeah,
security training and stuff. And they had like a valid banner at the top that had like a normal email address for my company.
yeah. Hmm.
And then you look above that and you see the actual URL or actual
Yeah,
email address, and you're like, that's not the same thing. That does not
yeah,
match
yeah, yeah.
up. But if you're like reading quickly and you just see, oh, this is the correct like a correct looking email
If you read it
address.
quick and you don't double check it beforehand.
Yeah. And that's like very terrible if you click on links. So, um, but specifically in this article, it's saying that cyber criminals, that's their terminology. I guess that would be an apt description,
Hmm.
are using large language models, which are basically just a type of neural network, right?
Yep.
To personalize phishing lures and avoid spelling and grammar errors. Honestly, I think the grammar and spelling errors just shouldn't be there to begin with at this point. I feel like nowadays,
You think they would be competent enough at what they're doing at this
yeah,
point that that shouldn't be an issue? But
yeah, I think it's really funny that there are people that still think that having spelling errors or grammar errors are ways to catch phishing emails. Because honestly, if you have that stuff in
yeah,
your
I can't even
emails,
think of the last time I saw like a spelling mistake or anything.
yeah,
Usually, how I check them now is that I just check what like where the email came from. Usually,
right,
that's like the way to
exactly.
check them now. Like I can't even think of the last time I saw one that was just like spelt poorly or anything.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like years at this point, like before this AI even took off.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. So that's just strange to me that
Yeah.
that's still a thing.
I mean, it seemed like that they were using it as a way to like not have to like find people who like natively spoke the language they're trying to scam in. So I guess they think it's a way to cut out like a potential middleman, I guess, and
Right.
then they wouldn't have to like split the if they fish, whatever they fish, they don't have to split the resulting money from it or whatever to another person. They're like, oh, I'll just have AI write it for me in a language I don't understand, and since it's AI, I'll just assume it got it right,
Hopefully.
and then I'll be able to keep all that money to myself rather than having to split it. But
Yeah. I mean, I presume that like large language models or language models in general can be trained for a specific language to just know the rules of grammar and spelling, because you just handed a dictionary and maybe like a bunch of novels and you're like, this is correct sentences.
yeah,
um
it doesn't seem like it would be that particularly hard to train it to at least just spell right.
yeah, but in regards to these even being used, I mean, I think it just makes sense. I mean, there's a new technology that has a lot of potential, so of course it'll also be
It's
used
going to be
by,
used in nefarious ways.
yeah, it's going to be used by criminals in some way or another.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't surprising at all to me. um I do wonder what ways can be used to circumvent them that could be classified as more automatic. I don't know, but at least for now, I think the main thing is just if you're vigilant enough with your
Yeah.
usage of your email. I mean, at least for your personal one, most of the stuff that you're seeing in there is spam anyway. At this point, like, you're not really,
Oh,
because you're on like so many subscription lists and everything where you're like, I
yeah.
don't even
It's
know what
just
this
spam.
is.
It's just spam. I should barely check like 90% of emails I get. I just delete them immediately
Yeah,
because like they're mostly just spam and not important.
yeah.
So
But similarly, like, you'll get I don't know if you've ever gotten these, but you get shipping notifications on your phone as well, and you're like, I
mm-hmm.
didn't ship anything. So now you'll get those now. Like, that's a more recent thing that I've noticed, that sometimes
Like
you'll just,
they're saying that you got getting something shipped to your house, but it's
yeah,
not actually you didn't actually order anything. I've never gotten that.
yeah, and they like send you a link on there to be like, track your package, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
what package though? Please tell me, what did I purchase?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, And so, like, I normally just buy everything off Amazon, so that normally isn't a problem. But there are a
Mm-hmm.
few sites outside of that that you'll be like, oh, I purchased something off of this website. Are they using just a UPS number? And is that why I'm getting this email?
Yeah,
So there's reasons why you could get confused about that. So it's always useful to check those sites to be like, are they tracking stuff? Are they tracking stuff in on their website, or is there another shipping number? But usually they'll email you stuff like that unless you
yeah. I feel like I've never
request.
gotten it really through a text. Usually when I order stuff, it's usually a shipping confirmation to email.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um, but I think that's more possible when you're using UPS directly, like you're shipping yourself something, or
mm-hmm.
like you're moving and stuff like that. Outside of that, I don't really see why most people would get UPS notifications and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but beyond that, for this specific example or this specific article, they talked about a couple different AIs that exist out there that are very
That are
easily,
trained for the phishing.
yeah, which threw me off. I was like, what are you talking about? How is that even a thing? But they talk about things like Worm AI and,
Yeah, it was Worm GPT, and what was there was other ones they mentioned here
yeah,
too. I'm
Worm
trying to see.
GPT, and then there
There
was
was
like one
definitely
or
other
two other
ones.
ones. I don't.
Fraud GPT,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think they
Dark
basically,
Bert.
yeah, I think they're basically saying like these just don't have the same restrictions that you have on ChatGPT for certain things.
Yeah.
And I think on like a baseline level for normal people, this could probably be used to do like, just make some funny stuff, like make the AI spit out funny
Mm-hmm.
things probably.
Yeah.
But for people that want to do harm with it, um,
Mm.
there's definitely the potential
I mean,
that,
it's not like it's even openly accessible for people who just want to do funny stuff with it. Though you still have to go on the dark web and buy it with Bitcoin, so it's
yeah,
like
that's
it's
true.
not being used for that purpose anyway. Even
Right.
if you could, a common person could probably use it for something funny. Not what it's being used for.
Yeah, I do wonder. I mean, they say I don't know if they have a website for like Worm GPT. Like, are you able to just go to their website and be like, I'm gonna buy this with a
Well,
Bitcoin?
if it's on the dark web is weird like that. I don't think that you have like actual like URLs on the dark web, do they? Isn't it like just like addresses that you have to type in to get to places?
Um,
I never really messed with the dark web really too much. I just know.
Yeah, I haven't
Like,
either. I've never even used Tor as a browser
I've
before.
never used Tor either.
I've thought about it before, but I'm like, I don't want to go on a site that I am not equipped to handle on my computer.
Yeah, no,
Um,
they're like not only like in terms of like virus and stuff, just even like in terms of what you might even just see like
yeah,
affecting you mentally. There is messed up stuff on the dark web.
yeah,
There's a reason it's the dark web, not
mm-hmm.
the light web. The happy web.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I don't know if they specified that you could only access these
I think it
AIs.
mentioned it that you have to buy with Bitcoin. I thought I remember reading.
They specified the Bitcoin purchase. I didn't know if they had the specification that it's not accessible on like your regular Chrome browser or something.
I guess that's true. I guess they didn't mention it, but I just well, they also said didn't they say? Oh, it said well, it says that here that Dark Bert was a bit was which WormGP and FraudGP are linked to is
Uh-huh.
trained on the dark web data. So I guess I
Oh,
just assumed that it was all from the dark web.
right, right.
Because I mean, if the AI itself is being trained on dark web data, I don't think they're posting it on like just like like a some random website on like the normal web and being like, get
Right.
this AI language model that's been trained on all the messed up stuff on the dark web. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that would fly.
Yeah,
Oh.
that would definitely be something to look a little bit further into because I'm not sure. I don't think I didn't have time to look further beyond the specific article to look
Yeah, yeah.
specifically into like Worm GPT or the other ones that were listed there. But I do know it said that it was trained by confidential data, and it was specifically trained to for phishing emails. I didn't know based off of that article if it was saying that the entire AI was meant specifically for phishing emails or if they trained it specifically to do that. I wasn't sure about that. Um,
Uh, I'm assuming that they. It seems like they just, from what I understood from the article, they just took like a base, like a language generator. Like they said, it's based on like what was it based on? It was like
Large language model.
GPTJ or
Oh yeah,
something.
yeah,
I think yeah, it was built on GPTJ. So I'm assuming because it says here that's an open source language model that can be used by anyone.
yeah.
I'm assuming they just took the open source language model and then they just trained on a bunch of dark web data, and that led to the resulting warm GPT, fraud GPT,
Gotcha.
dark BERT stuff.
That makes
It's just
sense.
trained on specific, like well, I guess like the one is specifically trained on like the like phishing data from the dark web, so it's really good at making phishing scams. The another one is good at making like fraud scams. That's why I guess fraud GPT. It's different. Making
Right,
good. Each one's like trained for different types of scamming.
right. Yeah, I do wonder if you use one of these specialized models and are like, sing me a song instead of like make me this
So
phishing
instead
email.
of what it was used for.
Yeah, like what would it spit out instead? Like is it still capable of doing that other stuff?
I
Because
guess it depends. I guess it depends. I would say probably not. I feel like the only reason ChatGPT is so good at doing so many things is because it's just trained on whatever's on the normal internet, which is a very wide
right,
berth of stuff. The stuff on the dark web, I feel like, is even though the dark web is significantly larger, the stuff on the dark web is a way of smaller scope. I feel like,
right.
so I feel like it wouldn't be able to come up with as many solutions to problems as like a normal Chat GPT would.
Yeah, it would also I
Uh,
think depend on if GPT-J, which was its like base like where what it started as, whether or not that was already pre-trained and then they further trained it into this like worm
well, I
GPT
mean, we could
model.
find out. I think well, there's an article. They linked to an article about GPTJ on that. I think.
Oh, probably.
Let's
Yeah,
see.
I don't have the article open. I just have my notes off of it.
Okay.
Um,
It was trained on 800 gigabytes of open source text dataset.
okay.
GPTJ. It was a model based on GPT-3, trained on 800 gigabytes of open source text dataset.
Hmm.
Has performance comparable to GPT-3 model of a similar size.
Okay.
So I guess
So
so it is pre-trained.
yeah, so it has a
It sounds
baseline for GP whatever it was trained on for GPTJ, and then I guess it was further specialized into Worm GPT. Um,
Mm-mm.
okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I was just curious about that. Thank you for answering that question for me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Um, but yeah, it is interesting that like regardless of what restrictions that you have on these AI models, like these training models, um, there's always going to be a way to still access them.
Yeah.
without like just like by circumventing them if you're tech savvy enough and you just want to use.
Yeah, that's like for anything. People, law. You know what they say? They say laws exist only for them to be broken.
Right.
So
Right. So I mean the question is like, would the usage of something like Worm GPT, is that something that needs to be restricted by law, or is that something that like it's just it's out there and then like it just depends on what you use it for? Because what you use it for is illegal, but like is the usage of the actual tool problematic? I have no idea.
uh,
Um,
I would I would say that I think that there definitely needs to be at least some restriction on AI. It's very unregulated right now, and if it keeps going down this path, it's just going to lead to more problems. I feel like. I think restrictions are definitely something that needs to be put in place, but at the same time, it doesn't matter again what restrictions you put in place because it's not going to stop people from doing stuff with Worm GPT on the dark web.
right.
So it doesn't really matter in terms of this. It's not going to be like they're posting all this stuff on the dark web, and then the United States government comes in and is like, you can't use AI for that, and they're like, dang, we got caught.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if anything, it's just so unregulated and unrestricted right now. They're just being like very, I guess, way more open and like brazen about it because they don't have to worry about anything. I imagine if it would be a scenario where it's like they actually start putting restrictions on this, they'll be more like, okay, maybe we have to be a little bit more, secretive about what we're doing. But like it
Right.
doesn't matter. It already is a thing that exists. So
So
it's not like it's gonna stop.
do you think those restrictions should be okay if you are trying to commercial, like if you have a commercial product that is an artificial intelligence, then you have all these sanctions on it, or is it just if you're even trying to make one yourself, or like because I'm like, if you're learning about AI in like school for the first time or something like that, and you're trying to make your first um models right for yourself, you can train it to do whatever the heck you want,
Mm-hmm.
you know. It might not be the best, depends on what you're training it off of and all of
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
But there is that question of, well, should a student be able to create a model that's able to do pretty much anything depending on what they do? I
well, I think it depends. I think obviously the baseline saw from the beginning things definitely these commercial AI systems like this Bing AI, Chat GPT, whatever. They definitely if the restrictions aren't put on them, in terms of like be what they're able to do and like this, like because then you have to start worrying about like who's like jobs going to replace because like even now like even with our field like Chat GPT, you can just walk up to Chat GPT and like give me like a 500 line C# program that does this and I'll just
right.
and it's like what was the whole point of me going to school, for 5 years if I could just
Uh-huh.
get Chat GPT to do my work? So it's like stuff like that is like a legitimate question that I think like big commercial AIs like ChatGPT and all this stuff, they definitely need to put restrictions on there because otherwise, what's going to stop companies from just being like, why hire 500 people when I could just get ChatGPT to do everything for me? And then it becomes a
Right.
whole issue. And I think in terms of like personal projects, I mean, it's like I don't see why. I think as long as you're not using them for nefarious purposes, like I'm not saying like if you use like if you come up with your own AI language model, you're just using it to like learn stuff and do this like a personal project. I feel like that's
Hmm.
fine. But the second you're like, oh, I'm going to use it to like to write like write like death threats, and I'm going to use these to like copy death threats and send them to people like to do this and that. I'm like, I mean, yeah, you're using what you've created. You're using for a malicious intent that is affecting other people. I feel like at that point you should be able to be. You need to be like at least like apprehended in some way. I feel like because at that point it's becoming a negative impact on other people. Same reason like the commercial thing I said, like with it's affecting people's livelihoods. Well, I feel like once you reach a point that it's a negative effect on other people, it's where I feel like the line is drawn in terms of restriction.
Yeah, so I agree in the sense that if it's being commercially used, there should be regulations in place for safety reasons and
Mm-hmm.
ethical concerns. On the side of like just an individual trying to create something on their own, seeing and exploring a new technology and understanding it for themselves, I think that as if it's in an academic sense, there is the question of, well, think about ethics, which is
Yeah.
it's kind of hard because you probably remember from school, like one of your most boring classes can be ethics at times in
Mm-hmm.
terms of technology development and stuff like that. It's a very arduous course to go through, and usually there's other things on your mind, right? So it's like you're just trying to get through that, but it is actually a very important topic to consider, in terms of like your personal projects and stuff like that, right? For example, I think it would it'd be an interesting experiment to be like, well, how easy, like maybe you just posit the question, well, how easy is it to create a phishing email, for example, that
Yeah.
is very good, right?
Yeah.
And you might postulate that and actually try and see like what exactly is the difficulty, or what is the range of difficulty for this type of a task. And through that experience, I think you gain a few things. You gain a better awareness of the faults or current drawbacks and limitations of modern cybersecurity, things that need to be addressed moving
Hmm.
forward. And also you gain a better understanding of how bad actors can utilize these technologies
Yeah.
for in order to harm people, right? And I think that's very important, as a technologist, or just someone enthralled in technology in any regard, to understand. I actually think that's even important for people to learn as just, I guess, lay people would be the right term, but like
Mm.
people outside of tech as an industry, but like just people that use technology, which is everyone, to understand that these things can be quite easy to access and utilize and misuse if you don't have the proper ethics in place. So it's definitely, I think that the restriction needs to be, it's a lot more nuanced, I think, when you're just trying to teach yourself stuff. Because,
Yeah.
for example, if you decide that you are going to create a CNN, for example, that creates images that are not appropriate, right? Well,
Yeah.
then the the question becomes, well, why are you doing that, right?
Yeah.
Is it purely for an academic purpose? Is there not anything else that you could do
Yeah.
instead?
No, that's like
Um,
an ethical concern for sure.
yeah, because like for example, with the phishing email, it's like, okay, you're not sending it out anywhere. Okay, cool. But uh, for the other one, it's like you can create some pretty nasty stuff out there,
Hmm.
and it's not just text; it's image data, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you can create some very harmful material, and just
Hmm.
because you're saying that it's for research purposes,
Yeah,
um,
that's kind of like
it's
I felt like I was saying, because once it becomes a danger to other people, it's
yeah,
outside being like, it's just for academic reasons. That it's like, even though you go back, like 20, 30 years, like the 90s, 2000s, when like people started writing like viruses for computers. Like, yeah, you could come
mm,
up with like, I want to write like a Trojan. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, now I know how they work. Now I do this, but it's like, I'm gonna make this Trojan. I'm gonna email to this company, and they're gonna get infected. I'm gonna take all the information out. It's like,
right,
okay, well, now you pass like the line of it doing it just for like research purposes, using it. you
right,
you breaking the ethics here and using it for a malicious intent. I feel like
yeah.
it's the same thing with AI now.
Yeah. And then,
Like,
it's not just image data that's like, oh, this is the only, like if it's something visual, that's the only way that it's inappropriate. Like you can say, oh, I'm going to write correspondence letters between two individuals in a sample email that is inappropriate in nature, right? And
mm-hmm,
and you could say that this is also for research purposes, but like there is a level of, well, aren't there other avenues that you can explore these areas, right?
mm-hmm,
And understand them. Um, because, for example, like if you're trying to create fake images, right? Um, you can do that of anything, and it's the same technology. You don't
mm-hmm,
necessarily have to do it in a way that's not appropriate. That's not that's like, I guess, defamatory or hurtful to other individuals. It also depends on what type of image data you're trying to utilize and create. So those all become very important questions, and I think that tests the moral fiber of the people that are actually studying these things, right?
mm-hmm,
And so I do think that those are important questions to posit, because there are certain things like creating images where it's like you can do that for anything. It's the same technology, same idea, right? And if you want to know specifically about the potential impacts or negative impacts or terror that comes with misusing that type of technology, there's tons of articles and stuff that you can read before
mm-hmm,
having to step into actually specifically creating that. You can learn the technology by doing something else, and you can just study what's going on out there. Um, Phishing emails, I feel like, well, that's not the same thing. right? If you wanted to test out how easy it is to create those types of things and stuff like that, I think that you can go that route and not have it be as much of a moral conundrum. And then, but again, it's not just versus text data versus visual data versus video, right? It's each of these things can have avenues that are morally questionable for you to just test the waters with,
Yeah.
and each of those can be like, well, this is a little bit weird if you're actually implementing it and utilizing it, but to understand the technology or to explore that area, it's not as big of an issue. So it does kind of depend on what you're looking at. But I think when you're specifically saying, okay, I am going to create this stuff where it's creating something that's not appropriate, um, especially like things like that are sexual in nature or defamatory and stuff like that, those I think need to be stepped away from and utilized through research and creating things that are using the same technology but maybe with a different end goal in mind, and you can
Yeah.
get the same information and understanding of what's going on there. Whereas if it's something like a phishing email where it's like, um, oh, maybe you create fake data about like an individual and you're like, utilize this information to create a person specific uh, email, right? To try and get them to click a link or something like that.
Mhm.
And you want to test this out. That's very different to me. Maybe it's not to some other people. And if you disagree with that, let me know in the comments because I am kind of curious about that. I think there is a line even in phishing emails where it's like, oh, don't utilize real data of people and try to create like, oh, what would a phishing email to my best friend look like?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
maybe you can do that with yourself if you were comfortable with that, right?
Mhm.
I think if you're using your own information and data, you could pretty much do whatever you want with that. But if you're utilizing other people's stuff, you either need their
Especially without their permission.
yeah, you either need their permission or don't do it. Like that.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. I
I
didn't even
think.
consider like you were talking about like the different data, like even considering different morality scales for like different types of media. Because like yeah, like we were talking about the phishing. I didn't even think like yeah, like you said, like if you use a phishing email for like research purposes, I wonder how they work. I wouldn't say that's nearly as bad as like using creating images of people in perverse situations that might necessarily. I would
Yeah.
say that is yeah, I would say that's significantly worse than the other thing. But at the
Yeah.
same time, then it falls into the thing I was saying, where it's like, well, the thing I said, like, only if it's a direct harm to other people. But it's like if you do that, you make those perverse images, never release them. It's like those people never get direct harm. So it's like, where does that fall under the law? That does
Right.
become kind of like a gray area, which is not something I had considered. That is
Yeah.
a bit of a gray area. Where does the line necessarily draw between it being a private thing for research and then harming others? I just assumed like, oh, once it's like public knowledge, it's harming
Hmm.
others. But like, you could even argue that the fact that these images exist without the person even knowing they exist is a hard enough line that they should be persecuted for that. But like,
Right.
which I didn't think about that. That's interesting.
This is why I think that there needs to be an opt-in process for anything that you do on the internet to be utilized by data scraping and like stuff like that in
Hmm.
general. I think that has to be something that you opt in for. Um, and of course, I mean, social media companies, they take our data and everything like that,
Yeah.
but we sign away our rights to those things, right?
Hmm.
And I think in a similar vein, um, companies themselves will have to decide, well, are we going to allow other people to legally utilize the data that's on our platforms? How exactly does that work?
Hmm.
And so I think that we as individuals also need to be very aware of what we're putting out on the internet
Yes.
now, because
Because anything could just be scraped and used by an AI to
yeah,
manipulate type of information. Yeah, I mean, like I feel like like the opt-in thing, like that should be a thing, but like just with the way the institutions, the governments are run, I don't think they understand enough of how this technology works to be able to implement a law that actually does it. Like, so they could be like, oh, you need to opt in, but then these companies will like hide that opt-in option like
yeah,
all the way at the bottom of like the settings. They have to like do two things, and you got to call a person. Just it's like they need to like it needs to be very clear and concise. I feel like because otherwise there's going to be 10 million loopholes that companies just going to get around because collecting that data is just way too much, just way
right,
too lucrative for them that they wouldn't want. They would want to do that. It was like what we were just saying too, like the opt-in for the web scraping. It actually, I guess this relates to one of the other articles that you sent me about this Stack Overflow
hmm Yeah.
It was the last paragraph that really got me because it's just similar to what we are talking about. They just said OpenAI is working on web crawler controls for ChatGPT, which will let sites like Stack Overflow opt out of crawling.
Right.
Which to me is just so funny because it's like you already scraped them for all the information on their website.
Yeah.
What is implementing that now going to do? I remember reading that. I was like, okay, so you're implementing the opt out system after you already took all their data without even making them opt in. So like,
Right.
what is even the point of implementing it at this point? Like,
Yeah.
Something like that. I'm just like, that's a little ridiculous. Like, it doesn't even make sense to me at that point.
Yeah, it's also funny because technically, like, yes, everything that we put on like Instagram or Facebook or any social media, right, or any of these platforms that we create accounts for and post information on, we are providing all of that for free to the government, or to not the government, to that
The companies.
company, right?
Yeah.
And they're able to already sell that data, right? For anything that, any which way that they please, for anything that they want. And we've opted into that. And so I don't really think we can complain about it because we're choosing to use those items, right? It's annoying.
Mm-hmm.
It's annoying, but and it's kind of like you're kind of forced into it, kind of, if you want to be a part of the world in a sense, because if you just refuse to be on any of these platforms, it's really
even
hard.
more so. You didn't even have to refuse like just having a phone or something, because you know how many times it's like I'm having a conversation with my mom about like I was like one example, like she was talking with like my brother's girlfriend about getting dog food for the dog or something, her dog or something, right?
Yeah.
And she goes, then she checks her Instagram account, and all the ads are about dog food, and you know, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, you know, like now you're like being like hidden about it at this point. It's just like, you know, it's like, so like if I don't want it. It's like, sure, you could be like, you could say like, oh, by using these websites, we're opting into them collecting the data, but at the same time, it's like I can't use any social media, which is like a main pillar of society at this point. Like so much stuff happens on social media that being completely blacked out from it makes it, I would put you on like a different level,
Right.
like a level below everybody, I would say, right? And then, you know, then it's like, oh, but then you can't have anything with like a microphone, no technology that has a microphone or a camera. And it's like, okay, but literally this right here has a microphone and a camera, you know, so it's like, so just don't have a phone, don't have a computer with a microphone plugged into it. It's like you got to do so much to be like, oh, I'm opting out of them collecting my data. That at that point, it's like not even worth it.
Right.
Like you basically have to be sheltered from the outside world.
Yeah, honestly, one of the ways that you could circumvent this is by legally saying that you cannot prevent people from using your products because they do not want to because they do not want their data to be collected, right? And because even on your iPhone, I don't know, do you have an iPhone? I forget.
No, it's a Pixel 6.
Yeah, so on an iPhone, when you open up an app, you have the options of allow tracking and ask not to track. And I'm like,
yeah, didn't they added like recently, right? Like some privacy feature for collecting data, I thought. Wasn't that like a whole thing?
So I've had
Was
this.
that not what that is?
As
I
far
could have
as
sworn didn't they added something like they added something like a year or two ago, like in the settings where it's like you can make it so apps can't collect your data, and then it was like a whole thing because then like Facebook was like putting pop-ups on Instagram like you gotta allow us to collect your data because it makes us money, and it's like you cannot use the app unless we collect your data. And it was like something I thought I remember this happening, but
I don't. You might be
this
right.
was like I'm gonna look at this anyway. Keep what were you saying? I'm gonna look this up now because now I'm curious.
But before that, what I was saying is even that second selection, it's not saying that they're not going to track your data. It's just that you're requesting that they don't track your data.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, that is the stupidest thing ever.
Yeah. You could do that even outside iPhones. You could put the do not track just on like any web browser. You go into the settings of any web browser. You could be like, oh, add the do not track flag to like any like, you know, TPS or, you know, message I send out. You know, which is like, okay, that's cool. But like, ironically, by doing that, that makes it easier for them to track you.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, this person always puts a do not track thing on their messages.
Yeah.
So it's like, it makes it easier for them to track you and collect your data that way. Even so, ironically, by doing that, it almost like does more harm than good, I feel like.
Yeah, it's very strange. But in regards to this Stack Overflow thing, right? This entire article is saying that due to ChatGPT, Stack Overflow laid off 28% of its staff. Definitely related. may or may not be 1-to-1. Like 100% of the reason is that. I doubt it, but like there's probably other factors. But the article goes on to show that ChatGPT scraped through Stack Overflow to
Yeah.
study, right? And so it just took all of that data for free without any sort of requesting of
And
information.
it's hurting the company,
Yeah,
which even they say in the article too. By doing that, it almost hurts. It hurts their future data scraping because if the site shuts down, there's going to be no data to collect.
yeah. So
And then,
based
like I
off,
said, it's funny too. They're like, "Oh, now that we collect all your data, now I'll give you the ability to opt out." And it's like, what is the point
yeah,
now? You've already scraped the entire website of everything that's on it. 28% of the company is now laid off.
yeah,
So it's like, what did it sound like? You had that before that all that data got scraped. So what is the point now? The damage has already been done.
yeah.
You know,
I think there are two layers of this conversation. There's, are individuals allowed to utilize platforms without waiving the rights to whatever data they're viewing and whatever information that they put out there? And the on the other side, it is, are people or are companies allowed to have their platforms not be scraped for data to be utilized by AI models, right?
I would think that you should be allowed to not have your site scraped because like the thing with ChatGPT is that you have to pay to use it, right? You
Yeah,
have to like a subscription.
yeah,
So
after a
like
while.
like you buy that subscription and you're like, oh, give me like a 500 line C# code that does this. So they are profiting off that data that they scrape from this website for free.
Right.
So like,
But on the other
like
hand, though, right, you can have an AI model go on Instagram, look through all of the artwork that's on Instagram, and spit out more artwork, right? Instagram could say, "Oh, you can't scrape Instagram." Fine. But Instagram could also say, "Oh, you posted this image. We own this image now." We don't own the images that we post on social media. That media company or that social media company now owns that image. We don't have any claim to it anymore
well,
because we willingly
I mean
posted
they
it
take
there.
information and collect it for data.
Yeah.
I would say like if you had the ability to opt out of them collecting your data, they wouldn't own anything. They wouldn't own anything about
Right.
that.
Right. And
You know,
so
I mean that's what
for
all
us,
basically like the internet is basically just an open forum. I feel like the only reason they could say, "Oh, we claim that," is because they're already using it to collect all our information anyway.
right.
Like so
So
basically they own it and own us in the sense that by doing this, they know everything about us.
yeah.
So
So
so, but like I want to say that's like I doubt they want to say that we claim copyright to this image that you post on your social media. I don't think it's like that type of ownership. I mean, we have if that was
I
the
don't
case,
think
then
it's a
like any
copyright,
like
but I think
any like
that,
music video posted to YouTube, YouTube would be like, we own this music video, and it's like you can't say that. Like this is like the
right.
product. I want like so.
Well, so I think that they don't claim like, I think they're saying, so I think a social media company, once you post images and stuff on there, they can utilize it for their own purposes if they want to. They're not going to force you to not post that image in other places, but they are going to say like, if I want to use this image for something, I think legally they can.
Can they?
I'm pretty sure
Like
they
use it in like what scenario?
I don't know if they just wanted to sell the image to someone for some reason. I think they legally
Well, I mean
could.
that's just the same thing as them selling our data, right? I mean that's part of our data,
Right, right. But
right?
like,
Yeah.
or for example, if they wanted to use it for some ad campaign or something like that, and they just took some images off of their website that they really liked, we're not gonna get
The
we're
other
not
people
gonna get.
posted. I feel like that can't be legal.
I'm pretty sure.
Is it
I'm
really? I
I'm
feel like that can't be legal. Like how you could just take like if I post like a picture on Instagram, they could just take my image and use it in a commercial without paying me for it.
let me
Like they're
search for it.
profiting off that commercial. How does that make any sense? Unless you're talking about things where they do like I know like like when it's like oh like it's like a baseball game or something going on, they like show like people tweeting about the game like on the screen. I feel like that's I don't know I want to say they're necessarily like profiting off that. I feel like that's a different thing than them making an ad campaign about. Just like showing that people are excited for the game on the jumbotron of the like a baseball field doesn't necessarily show like
So
doesn't they're not making any more money off that. Nobody's gonna see that random tweet on the jumbotron and be like, oh yeah, now I'm gonna give this baseball team another $500. Like it's I feel like it's different for an ad campaign versus
I looked it up. So
yeah.
So it says that you are creating a non-exclusive license to host your content. That's one thing. But then another source is saying here that Instagram can give away or sell your content. So this means that they could license a user's photo or video to any third party for free without seeking permission, giving any notice, or offering any payment to the user.
That's insane.
Yeah. So they don't own it, but they can
Mm.
give it out and sell it if they wanted to. Um, yeah.
And
So
so I guess it's like no kind of like no different from like when you. I guess it's like the opposite way around, but it's like no different when you buy a game digital. You don't technically own it. They could just take that game away from you whenever you want.
yeah.
So it's like a similar scenario, but like in the opposite direction, where it's like we own it, but they could just take it from us whenever we want.
Yeah. So I think that what it actually means is, from a moral standpoint, if these companies are able to just take our information and sell it and utilize it in whatever way they see fit, well, another company can come along and scrape whatever the heck they have and
Well,
utilize it
I
in
see.
whatever
Well,
way they see
I
fit.
mean, I guess if you say it like that, it's true fair. But I feel like there should just be no data collection happening to begin with. I'm
Oh,
saying
I
in like
agree. I
in the
agree.
perfect utopian world, they can't collect our data, and the AI can't scrape the websites.
Right.
But the vicious cycle of a world that we live in, I guess if they're already collecting our data, they might as well lose some money from getting their data scraped by AI. But all that does is just funnel all the money to the AI
Right. And I mean,
instead of diversifying it out across whatever.
I mean
I mean,
there
even, as
there
how corrupt as it is, saying, "Oh, it's a good thing that collecting our data is spreading out revenue across
right.
the internet." But like at the same time, it's like, do I want all this money just going to these AI companies and then all these other companies? It's like the same thing with like Amazon now. Like how many brick and mortar stores are going out of business and having to shut down, and now all these empty storefronts everywhere just because everybody buys everything off Amazon.
Mhm.
It could be like the same. It would be the same thing for data collection. It's like as much as I can't believe I'm saying this because it sounds like psycho, but in the world that we live in, you have to talk about it because data collection exists, unfortunately. But like would I route all my data to go to these AIs and then they put all these websites out of business and everything ever is just being collected by this AI? Or would I rather be like, oh, the Twitter has a little bit of my information and Instagram has a little bit of my information and,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I I think that in the ideal world, it's as you said. So we we don't get our information taken, and then companies don't get their information taken by AIs. I think the middle ground beyond that would be that if we uh that I think the actual practical there might be problems with this too, but like the potentially practical solution would be, you want to use social media, you pay like a $1 or $2 fee each month to use social media, and as a result, they don't sell your data or track your data at all beyond the usage of their own algorithms for giving you content that you're interested in, and then they
Mm-hmm.
don't sell their data to anyone else,
So they wouldn't have to
and then
profit off selling the data. It was just you
yes.
pay to use the site.
Yes. And then if you want the free version, okay, cool, that's fine. They can sell your data as they see fit. It's all good. And then if a AI or another company wants to utilize the data stores of Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook or whatever, they have to pay a fee to utilize it in a commercial manner. So, for example, if we are students or we just want to utilize it for our own purposes, you can scrape through the software or the data stores for free, or given some limited number of points or tokens or whatever, which is what most of these AIs have anyway. And then you can create something using that type of a system where you can scrape a certain amount of data each month, and that's fundamentally free for your learning purposes. And then if you want to upgrade to actually selling and utilizing that data in a commercial manner, well, then now you also have a subscription model fee that you have to pay to utilize that. The only issue there is that it would create a middle ground where then the social media companies, I guess, are earning all the money because they would get paid from both sides. Um, but I think that there needs to at least be something where the individual who's also selling or getting their data taken gets some. I guess the compensation technically would be the access to the platform, right? It's an exchange
Mm-hmm.
of goods and services like that. Um, but I think there should be a way to at least opt out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just ethically speaking, I think that there should be. But I don't know if that's ever going to actually happen. That would be my ideal world. You can opt out
Yeah.
from by paying a fee, and then you just have to kind of be okay with the social media companies becoming
Mm.
super rich.
I mean, it's not stopping them
Right.
from even like on. I mean, I think that's like you said, a fine middle ground. I think it should just be opt out, and I don't have to pay anything. I feel like these companies make enough money, but I mean, even we live in like the complete dystopian version where we're having to pay to use these websites, and they're still collecting our data,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
like the little worse version of this scenario that we could find ourselves in. It's just that these companies just want they like just want to make so much money that I don't even know what they could even possibly be spending it on.
Yeah. I don't know. But in regards to this whole Snapchat or not Snapchat, Stack Overflow situation, do you think that means that like AIs like ChatGPT have a reduced longevity if the companies that they're pulling data from are essentially disappearing or like reducing staff and stuff like that? Does that create a situation where you're kind of biting the hand that feeds you, and as a
I
result
would say so.
you could be starving yourself in the
Yeah, I
future?
mean, if there's less data, if you're closing on the websites you're scraping your data off of. There's going to be less data for you to scrape.
Yeah.
Your model's not going to be as efficient in the future.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a biting the hand that feeds you scenario. I feel like for sure.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then so I think that's one of the reasons where I'm like, well, Stack Overflow should probably get a slight cut out of that. Either as a royalty or a monthly fee or a lump sum fee to even train on that data, whatever it is, right?
yeah,
There should be
but if
something there.
ChatGPT had to pay that for every website over the entire internet, they would be bankrupt in about 2 seconds.
Right, right. So it creates, yeah.
That's why they should have just had the opt-out thing, but
Yeah.
they're only implementing it now after they've already scraped the entire website of its data.
Right.
So it's like, well, I don't see the point of that doing that now.
Yeah.
You kind of, like I said, the damage has already been done.
Kind of late, but I think the other issue with this though is that say people are not using Stack Overflow as much now. According to that article, they're using just like the AI to ask it the questions that they're asking. Well, what happens if in like 10 years down the line, no one's going to Stack Overflow? There are no original ideas. There's none of that form type of conversation, right? Where you ask a question, people respond, you get like 10, 15, 20 answers, you have a whole conversation thread, and that's what ChatGPT got its information from. Well, now those situations aren't happening. What happens if it's a new language? What happens if it's...
That's like we said, it's the biting the hand that feeds you scenario. Yeah. Like, what if a new language comes out, but Stack Overflow's been gone 5 years, ChatGPT is going to have nothing to train on to learn this new language.
Yeah. Apart from, I guess, whatever input information it gets from people, but those that
still would not allow for as much depth as all the Stack Overflow information allows.
Yeah. And even let's say you jump from, like Python, like you jump Python versions, right? There are changes into what that language is now capable of. Say they come out with Python 4.0. I don't actually know if that exists yet, but I know it's like 3.7 was the last one.
3 point something,
remember coming out. And so what happens when it jumps up and there are new concepts in the language or differences in the implementation and ways to get the best results and stuff like that, and now you're missing that conversational element with everyone in the community because now it's just ChatGPT is going to be giving you semi-false data or false information, giving its best guess as to what
that's one of the problems with AI too, is that it just spouts out things and it just assumes that a lot of people just assume that it's true.
Yeah.
Even though most of the time it's kind of just making stuff up because it all does, it was like that. I don't know if you saw, this was like maybe close to a year ago, a couple months ago, but it was like that lawyer that had read up like his whole testimony in like ChatGPT as an actor doing the work, and it like referenced court cases that just don't exist. as cited in his like testimony court cases that literally have just never happened.
Right.
And the lawyer did not bother to cross-reference it because he just assumed ChatGPT wouldn't make stuff up.
Right.
And then he lost his job, So, like, I mean, if that's happening with just that, it could happen with anything. Right. A lot of people, I feel like, just rely on ChatGPT as, like, the gospel.
It's just
like, it can't tell me any wrong.
It's just
when it most certainly can and probably does more often than you think.
Yeah. In the case, Scott Pilgrim versus the world. That's just what I imagine. It's like looking for similar text.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, copy, paste, or it could be.
Let me see. I'm gonna look it up again right now because I'm curious. But you keep going.
So stuff like that definitely exists, and I mean, part of that depends on the models that you're using, how well trained they are, and stuff like that. But then you also come into overtraining, and it's like a constant thing where it's like you're never gonna get a 100% perfect model, and it's just always going to have to keep evolving. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, I definitely think that it is a cause for intrigue, not necessarily grabbing the alarm bells and sounding everything off right away, but it's something to keep note of that um, this could be a problem 5, 10, 15 years down the line where
Yeah.
all these forms that existed where you could have real conversations, talk to people that have real knowledge and creativity and expertise are now gone, and you're just looking at regurgitated, altered information that might not necessarily be accurate. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, was there anything else you wanted to say on this before we jump over to our last article?
No, and I feel like we covered a good breadth there. Okay, yeah. I was just looking at what the fake case was called because I was curious.
Ah,
It was the case. The fake case was Varghese versus China Southern Airlines. I was just looking at it because I didn't remember what it was. I know I remember reading it.
yeah.
Like he just assumed that was a real case and it cross-referenced it. And when he submitted that to the judge was reading that like,
What is this?
where's your source of this case? He was like,
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, Varghese versus South China Airlines.
I had 1
It,
hour
it
to
had a
come up
it had
with
a fake
this.
excerpt from the case and everything. ChatGPT wrote like
That's so funny.
so the lawyer just assumed that it gave all this information. It must be a real case.
That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
yeah.
Um, yeah, that's the big thing where I'm like, for medical stuff, for technical information, for history, is it the best? Mm, maybe a starting point if you want some general
Like a lot
information.
people use it like they like Google. Like they just
Yeah,
type a question to get an answer and they just assume it's right.
yeah,
If anything, it should be used as a tool that helps lead you in the direction of finding the right answer
yeah.
or
I
finding the
agree.
solution to the problem. It shouldn't be the be all end all.
Yeah,
But a lot of people assume that it is the be all end all, and everything it spouts out is correct,
yeah.
which is not true.
At least with the version of AI that we have currently, because there's nothing to be like, oh, this is a fact, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there need to be models that say, oh,
Yeah, like
this is a
it's not aware of what it is saying.
yeah, because even if
It's just basically all this is just using like predictive text to just figure out
yeah,
what what the best answer would be in this scenario. It happens to
yeah,
be really good at figuring out what the best answer is in that scenario, but it has no way of determining what it's saying. It's just made up gibberish or actual
hmm
facts with sources.
yeah, because even if you look and give it like, oh, this is a textbook. Well, your textbook is an interpretation of history still, right? There
Yeah.
might be facts in there, right? You got your dates and your events and stuff like that, but there are elements to a history book that are opinionated, that are leaning through a specific lens of history,
Hmm.
right? You can look at history through different lenses, and you get different outputs of what you're looking at. And so it's like even history where you're like, oh, this is historical fact. And you're like, well, is it? I mean,
Hmm.
maybe, maybe not. What exactly, like when you look at the context behind situations, it becomes, well, this isn't really fact anymore. It's, um, there are elements of truths to it. There's one side, or maybe even you have list of different sides of the same historical event, and you'll be like, they're
Yeah.
completely different. So it's very hard to be like, oh, these are objective truths. I think you can get that with math, maybe science, right? The hard sciences, you could probably get some of that. But when you look at things like historical evidence, laws, you could probably put down the Constitution, right? Certain
Hmm.
law books, like the books of law that exist out there, you could probably put down. But when you get to um, talking about specific cases and stuff like that, two sides to all of those arguments, it's hard to be like this is objective truth. So it's hard to do that stuff. But anyway,
Yeah.
let's go into our final article. So this final article is, I believe, was labeled "ICliniq Founder and CEO on Why AI Should Be Seen as an Ally in Healthcare." So iCliniq is like a platform that's used for second opinion health problems. When I read through this article, I was waiting for the AI conversation to happen in here.
Hmm.
It's just one paragraph at the bottom, and it's
Yeah.
basically the founder being like, "AI cool, we use it."
Yeah, no, I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
And it was funny too. I was the order I read these articles, and I read this one first,
Hmm.
and it was like, oh yeah, AI is cool. It's a tool. And the next article I click on has the headline AI used in phishing scams to scam people, and
Uh-huh.
I was like, I don't think that's necessarily a completely true blanket statement that you could say there, dude.
Right.
Based on what this next headline is telling me.
Yeah, I don't
Mm,
know if you remember that last paragraph very well, but I have a
I have
quote
it pulled
from it.
up.
I have a quote from it, which I
Yep.
find very funny. It says, and this is by the person. I think this is all the founder's information. Like he was having a conversation with the founder of this
Yeah.
company, whoever the author was, and this is what they had to say. So this person said, we use several AI things in the ecosystem of the platform to help doctors answer queries, to help our team work faster, and to help
That is
patients
a
earlier."
complete statement of absolutely nothing.
Exactly, exactly.
It is
So
a complete nothing burger of just buzzwords to get people on board.
yeah,
You know, it's like, oh, I have this AI metaverse blockchain multi-stage platform
yeah,
that will help make lives significantly easier for people and help improve, society. It's like it means absolutely nothing. What does any of that mean? You're just saying every buzzword to make it so that like those shareholders are like, yep, yep, yep.
yeah,
You
yeah.
take our money, take our money.
It sounds like such a CEO statement too. When I
It
read
is
that,
100% such a
I was
CEO
like,
statement.
"Oh, this is all questions to a CEO. It's not like,
Like it didn't even the article didn't even really talk much about AI in general. It was just
yeah,
like I don't get. It was just like I don't even quite understand what the AI really does. Is it just
yeah."
the AI just pairs them up with a doctor who know best how to solve their problem?
I
Like
don't even think so, because honestly, it just
that's
looks
what I
like,
got out of. That's what I assumed it was talking about. Like it was like something
yeah,
where it's like you go to the website and you type in it like what's your problem? It's like oh I feel like I have a headache and I have a slight fever and then
yeah,
the AI would be like oh okay can you give me more detail and you go like blah 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 and it'd be like okay try to go to find you a match with a doctor or
yeah.
something
Honestly,
and then
I honestly don't think so, just based off of this article. I'm like, maybe it could be. Not enough information to know that for sure.
no this was not
But
not a good article.
yeah, I was
This
kind
is
of
a
annoyed.
terrible interview.
Yeah, because I was kind of annoyed because this is on Tech Brew. This was on my Tech Brew email,
Yeah.
and it was like an excerpt from, I think they said it was from their health email that they have as well, because they have a bunch of different type of morning brew emails that they send out. And so this kind of annoyed me because I was like, you posted this from the health email and added it into here, but you have literally no information. So that I
It
kind
has
of,
nothing to do with the technology
yeah,
side of it. Besides
that
at the end being like, we use AI things.
yeah, and so on that level, it kind of annoyed me in terms of the people in charge of Morning Brew. I was like, you guys needed to do a little better there.
Well,
But
Morning Brew, we're coming for you.
yeah, Morning Brew, we're coming for you.
Don't
But
you better not run into us in a dark alley. We have some choice things to say.
yeah, so to me, this kind of just left me wondering. Um, Please give me some more information about what this AI does on this platform.
Yeah, it
Um,
was not clear from this article at all what the AI is even does that they're talking about.
yeah. But in regards to AI in the healthcare industry in general, I just wanted to mention, like, I think it's a cool concept. I think there's still a lot more clinical research that needs to be done here, and it depends on what specifically you're trying to do, because there's definitely research on using image data to try and catch cancer or like different diseases earlier than it would be caught otherwise, just through a
Hmm.
doctor's expertise, just using prior data of what these images looked like over the years, and then knowing, oh, over the years this specific series of images led up to a cancer indication here, right? And then you find similar images on another patient, and you can find the ability to be like, oh, maybe this person has this issue going on. And so I think that there's definitely
There's
use
potential. I
cases.
don't know if the technology's there yet.
Yeah, I don't think it's there yet right now. I think first it'll be probably best to be utilized in clinical practices like this, where it's like, you just have maybe like an analyze button after a visit, and then
Yeah.
you
Well, like
just
it says in
get,
the article, use it as like a second opinion.
yeah. But I
Which
don't
is
think,
what like, we
I
were
don't,
talking. We were
I
going
don't,
back to before about talking about how AI just use it as a tool and
yeah,
get your actual information from somewhere else. It
yes,
basically is just what AI is being used for, or should be used for in general. This guy's not really doing anything unique. I feel like.
right. I also think that this article title was I think it was clickbait, honestly, because I
What was
don't,
the title
I
again? On why AI should be seen as an ally in healthcare.
yes, because I don't think
He,
that
he
it's
did, I don't think
saying
that
that
question
the
was answered in this
no,
article.
no, because I think that it's saying that the platform itself is used to provide second opinion healthcare, right? It's not saying that that's what the AI is specifically utilized for. It's too vague. It doesn't tell you what that is. It says that you input your symptoms and it gives you healthcare providers. That's the same as any healthcare platform ever. Like
Mm.
you're like,
Yeah, but
oh,
this one uses AI, so
but
therefore it is cutting edge and deserves to be given a lot of money.
right.
It will not be going under in within 5 years.
So
Trust me.
I just don't think that that's necessarily what this tool does, because I have no idea. I don't know based off of this article what it does. I didn't have
No,
time to do more research into the company to
I
understand.
didn't do more
I'm
research
sorry
either.
to you readers. If you want more information, maybe go to their website and
Well, the
see if you can
articles will be
find
linked
out.
in the description. Just
Yeah.
go click through and figure it out.
Yeah, but for healthcare, I definitely think there's avenues for it. I think that the easiest thing to do in terms of implementation and feasibility right now would be analyze data after a session with your doctor. And then when your doctor is reviewing that data from like an examination or whatever, and before you have like a follow up to converse about what actually happened, what information you need to know, have this spit out potential information, maybe like a paragraph or a series of data points
Yeah.
of like, oh, these are either pain points or things that of note that it noticed, and it's just a secondary thing that the doctor can think about and see, oh, what else is this being spitting out based
Hmm.
off of the data it's looking at. I don't think that it should be utilized to provide direct second opinions, which again, I don't think that's what this
Because the
platform
technology is
does.
not there yet because it's not
Yeah.
trustworthy.
Yeah, and I don't think that's what this platform does. I think it's just worded
Well,
that
that's what the
way.
article makes it sounds like it
Yeah,
does. I feel like.
I think it's just worded that way to be intentionally vague. So I don't think that that's actually what this does.
Essentially vague, so people are like, "Oh, this sounds like a good company. I'm going to invest $500 million,"
Right.
and then the company goes under in like 2 years, and you're like, "Oh, okay." Well.
Yeah, but I think it's literally just connecting people based off of what you think your symptoms are to
That's
medical
what I
professionals.
assumed.
That's what it's actually doing. I think it
Yeah.
was vague enough to try
Calling it
and make
that
it
a second
seem like,
opinion, I think, is a bit of a stretch.
yeah. I think it's saying that, oh, if you've already been to a doctor, use our platform.
I'm gonna pair you with another doctor that will
Yeah.
just tell you the same thing as the doctor you were just at. Like,
Yeah, I think it's saying that the doctors that we pair you with are going to give you the second opinion, not the AI.
that's what I assume as
Yeah,
well.
but it's very vaguely stated here, and I think
Yeah,
that's on purpose.
that's
From
100% intentional on the
yeah,
CEO's part, though.
yeah. So I just yeah, but again, in the healthcare industry, definitely areas for it. I think especially in areas that provide medical imaging. So anything relating to X-rays,
Yeah.
even regular cameras that are like endoscopes and stuff like that, like those types of procedures where we have either video or image data that can then be analyzed. I think that there's a lot of potential there.
Hmm.
There needs to be a lot more research into how that'll be utilized effectively and in what exactly the space is going to be. So I definitely think there's routes for it. I don't think it's something that'll be utilized real time just yet.
No, I don't think so. Like I said, I don't think the technology's there yet.
Yeah, because like you're not going to be in surgery and you're looking at your camera really, and you're like, oh, you have like a little box.
ChatGPT,
Yeah.
where am I making the incision?
Yeah, or like ChatGPT, is that cancer? Like I don't think that that's the way that you want to go about it just yet.
No.
Maybe in 10 years. I think first off you need to have, if you wanted to do that, you need to have uh what's it called? PII scraped or personally identifiable information scraped from like from your video data, and just have that standalone in a national database where it can't be traced back to individuals. And then if you want to utilize that on a medical standard to say you guys can utilize this information for medical analysis, Sure, maybe that would be a way to go about it. I don't think that's going to happen, though.
No.
I think the closest thing you're going to get is we're all in the same network of this hospital. We all have access to this same data set. You can utilize it how you see fit within network. I think that's more in line with how terrible healthcare is set up in this nation, in
Hmm.
terms of it being more about monetary gains and stuff like that, as
It's for
opposed,
profit.
yeah. So I don't think that we're ever going to get like a central database that's really, really good that can accurately identify this information for a very long time, because it's just going to be so hard to implement something like that in this nation, at least.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that there's definitely some merit in continuing down that road in terms of medical research and stuff like that to see where this
It has a
information
future.
goes.
I just don't think that future's right now.
Yeah, it's not here yet. I think maybe a few decades probably for it to be really
Probably.
good, for it to be kind of good,
Come back
limited
to us in
applications.
season 50 of A Moment in Time in 2046 when we'll
Yep,
answer this question.
exactly.
Remind us about season 2, episode 1.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that is everything for today.
Mm,
Didn't have anything else to discuss here.
mm,
Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. I know that
mm.
last article was a little sparse of information if you're reading through it, or even just wondering what we're talking about. But you know
There was
that
not much to talk about.
there wasn't a lot. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Definitely check
Mm.
out those articles. I'll try to link them down in the comments as well. And yeah, let us know if there's any other technology related topics or anything else that you want us to talk about next time. Definitely interested in your thoughts on that. That's all we have for today. We'll catch you next time in A Moment in Time. Bye.
Bye bye. Adios.